Welcome to another exciting edition of the Trading Bell. This week we're coming to you from Eastlands here in Nairobi, which is one of the areas where we have one of the leading steel manufacturing companies in the country, that is Tononoka Group. And we'll be speaking to Mr. Dharmesh Savla, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the company, and we'll be getting to understand how the company has performed in regards to their operations in Kenya and of course East Africa. He'll also be talking to us about how they managed during the pandemic. We'll be taking a tour of the facility as well. Before we get to that, let's take a look at his profile. Mr. Dharmesh Savla is a business leader with vast experience in the steel industry, spanning over a decade. Before his appointment as Group CEO, he was the Chief Financial Officer of Tononoka Rolling Mills Limited, one of the arms of Tononoka Group. He is the current Group Chief Executive Officer of Tononoka Group, one of the largest steel manufacturers in East Africa. Mr. Savla has capitalized on his cross-border social network established during his study and stay abroad by incorporating business concepts that have seen Tononoka Group expand to the East African regions. Tononoka Group has become the first and only steel manufacturer to launch a loyalty program dubbed Tajirika na Chuma that aims to incentivize their clients financially, especially during these hard COVID-19 times. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the Trading Bell. Welcome on board.
Thank you.
All right. When we look at Kenya's economy, we are predominantly an agricultural driven country. We are looking at a country that is getting to a position where we want to be a big player when it comes to the manufacturing sector. And Tononoka Group is not a stranger to the homes and the economy at large. When you mention the brand has been there for some time.
Yes.
Talk to us about your experience in the Kenyan market and what has the journey been like?
It's been a long journey. We had very humble beginnings. We started as a hardware shop, Tononoka Hardware Limited, some 40 years ago. From there we moved to small manufacturing. We started installing tube mills and shearing lines. At some point we got our own galvanizing line. And in 2005, we invested in this plant in Dandora to set up a rolling mill. And today we are, as you've said, at the top in the Kenyan market. We look forward to growing even more, and we want to become the #1 company in Africa for steel products.
All right. Talk to us about your market size as well as how big has the company grown over time?
We have grown from a small volume to about 150 to 180,000 tons per annum with all our products. We cater for a very diverse spectrum within the economy. We cater to infrastructure projects, we cater to construction projects, we cater to agricultural projects. We even cater towards the Juakali industry. So we've come to a stage where Tononoka is embedded in almost every industry that you can think about.
Wow, quite milestones there you've achieved as a company.
Yes.
And let's move the conversation forward in regards to the product menu that is presently available to the market. Talk to us about your flagship products and what has been driving growth.
The flagship product currently is our reinforcement steel bar, which is very popularly known as Chuma, and that is leading in terms of the sales volumes and tonnages. The main reason for growth has been our commitment to quality and customer service. We pride ourselves in being the best when it comes to quality. We have taken a lot of steps to make sure that our quality is never questioned, and we want to remain at that top of the quality product market. Along with that, customer service is very, very important. We've learned over time that for achieving growth, if you are catering to your customers' needs, that's the simplest answer you have.
Sure. And Savla, you sit at a very vantage point as the Chief Executive Officer. And what have been some of the trends that have seen growth in the steel industry? Is it a matter of government projects? Is it that the economy has been growing and Kenyans have more disposable income to invest in properties that touch in construction? What has been the experience like from where you sit?
It's been a multitude of factors. There is, yes, a lot of government initiative behind infrastructure development, which helps to propel the country to the next level in all sectors. And of course, manufacturing has to play a role in that. Along with that, Kenya has over time started or reduced its dependence on importation of these products. Primarily being an agricultural economy, we weren't focused that much on manufacturing, and we were depending on importation to supplement our requirements. But gradually this has reduced, and we are manufacturing more and more locally.
All right. Interesting trends. And Mr. Savla, the elephant in the room is Kenya has gone through a pandemic, which is of enormous proportions. It affected not only Kenya, but countries across the globe. And this is the coronavirus pandemic. This affected supply chains, especially for manufacturers who were relying on raw materials, say from China and other markets across the globe. As a company, how severe did this affect your operations? And have you been able to make a comeback?
The pandemic, unfortunately, has, as you've put it, affected every country across the world. Kenya was not left behind in this, and even we were affected. We were very fortunate as Tononoka. We took very good measures at the onset of the pandemic, and I'm talking about 1 year ago, when in March 2020, when even the government had not yet imposed a lockdown, we were the first company to take a shutdown for 3 weeks, so that we could be better prepared and our staff could be better prepared to in the coming times when the pandemic took its real foothold. So those 3 weeks gave us a good opportunity to come back prepared for everything, make sure we have all the facilities which are required in place to tackle the pandemic without having any adverse effect. And as I said, we've been very fortunate. We've not had a single fatality within any of our staff or their family members. We have had a few cases of infections, but all of them have recovered and are back on work. So we've been very fortunate. We feel that going forward, these measures which the government is bringing about, which have been very good in Kenya, by the way. We've not faced issues like Brazil or India or United States, where public support was not there for some measures, or the government was very reluctant to put in place some measures. But in Kenya, we've been very lucky. The public has been very, very supportive of the government initiatives, and we've not faced the brunt of the pandemic like other countries have. So again, we've been very fortunate that way. Coming out of this, we are optimistic. We feel that Kenya can overcome any challenge, and Tononoka is with Kenya in that, and we're optimistic that we'll get through this.
Talk to us about the supply chains and how did this impact on your business, because you handle a very sensitive commodity.
We have had some disruptions, but again, we were, as Tononoka Group, we were fortunate. We weren't dependent on a single country or source for our raw materials. We've been very diverse with different areas where we're procuring from, and we've been very proactive in making sure that our supply chains are not affected that badly. At the same time, Tononoka does a lot of recycling. So we melt scrap metal, and from that we make our finished product as well. So part of the disruption doesn't really affect us as badly as other industries.
When you look back with hindsight, what are some of the lessons you've learned out of the pandemic as a big manufacturer in the region?
The biggest lesson to be learned from the pandemic was at the bottom, or rather at our core, we need to be very humble. We need to realize that nature and God are supreme, and we are going to have to be at their mercy. So if we are not going to be humble and not going to, or not believe that there is something above us, then we're in for a bad time.
All right. And what's the general experience right now in terms of, has business resumed back to normal on where it was, say, in 2019? Are you seeing sales picking up now that you're seeing the easing of the lockdown measures, extension of the curfew? How has it impacted on operations, especially when it comes to turnover?
In the years 2020, we did have some logistic challenges to access markets beyond our borders, to export into countries like Uganda, Rwanda, elsewhere, because of restrictions on travel and curfew times. So with the easing of these measures, business is improving, turnaround is faster, and yes, turnover is increasing.
All right. One of the questions I always ask my guests on this show is the numbers. Give us the numbers in regards to how severe did the pandemic affect operations, by what percentage? And right now that you're saying there's some return to normalcy, how has it also impacted on your books?
The return to normalcy has seen our company get back into the black compared to 2020. In terms of numbers, in 2020 we were underperforming by about 15% of what we were expecting to do, whereas with things coming back to normalcy, we are back on par where we should be at.
I'd like to pick your mind when it comes to looking at opening opportunities for manufacturers like yourselves. We know that steel prices have been rising over the last few years, and this has a big impact on consumers when it comes to affordability. And have you also seen a big impact in the prices? And what's driving the prices? Because consumers at the end of the chain, they hope to get quality products at affordable price?
The reason for the increase in pricing is a very big topic. There's a lot of different factors which affect it. The exchange rate, the oil prices, iron ore prices. Steel is dependent on a lot of different inputs at various stages, and all of these are affecting it. The global demand and supply will also have a big impact. At the moment, there is a big shortage of both raw materials and finished product across the globe because various plants across the world are shut down. India, China, the Europe, Americas, a lot of plants, steel plants are shut down because of the effects of the pandemic. And we are optimistic that by end of this year we'll see a turnaround in all of this, because as the drive for vaccinations increases and plants resume operation across the globe, this demand supply equations will return to normal, and we should see easing of pricing and the hardship that the common man is going through at the moment.
All right, and finally, Mr. Savla, one thing many manufacturers have been pushing for is the cost of power, as well as policy issues touching on taxation. As a company, what are some of the biggest challenges, and which areas would you like to see a lot of emphasis being placed by those in authority to ensure that they create a level playing field to ensure seamless operations and profitability for manufacturers like yourself?
Power is always at the top of our minds. It is something which is always going to remain a challenge because it is driven by the vagaries of oil and forex.
Sure.
We are continuously engaging Kenya Power, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and other players to bring out the best we can when it comes to how power is generated and how power is distributed within Kenya. And we are hopeful that very soon we will come up with some formula which works for everybody. Coming to other government policies, we are encouraged a lot by recent progress being made by regulatory bodies like Kenya Bureau of Standards, the environmental body NEMA, where things are progressing, where companies like ourselves are made more aware about the environment that we are in and how to ensure that we are not polluting, we are not in any of their bad books. Kenya Bureau of Standards is enforcing quality, which is very good for the country because the benefit is going to go down to the common man.
All right. Perfect place to get to transition to the factory. Well, we've been speaking there to Mr. Dharmesh Savla, who is the CEO here at Tononoka Group. We'll be taking an in-depth tour of their facility, as well as getting an appreciation of the investment and the scale and the size of this operation. Let's transition over to the factory. So these ones are delivered by different traders. What you're seeing here.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Different. There's traders. There's other steel manufacturers who have their wastages or material which they do not require, which doesn't get converted into the finished product.
Ah, okay.
So
So
all
all
of that.
this is melted. How is it done?
Yes,
it must be done under very intense heat.
Yes, it's done at 1600 to 1650 degrees
Wow.
centigrade. So we're going to see that.
Okay. All right. I can't wait. I can already feel some heat.
All right, so that is what we call the furnace.
All right.
And the scrap metal is put inside the furnace, and it's got coils around it which are running a very high voltage and carrying a lot of current to melt that steel. The temperature in there is about 50 degrees centigrade. So the melting is almost concluded, and the vessel which is outside there, which we call the ladle, is where the liquid steel will be poured out.
All right. So this is done every day.
It's done continuously.
Okay.
One cycle will run about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and thereafter we'll begin another cycle on the next furnace.
All right.
It's one furnace, but it's got two different ladles.
How much quantities do you get per furnace?
This one can give us about 11 tons of liquid steel per cycle.
Per cycle. And is it running on electricity?
It's electricity.
Wow, you guys must be having serious power bills.
Yes, we do. The liquid steel is first actually taken for further processing or refining in what is known as a MSS converter. Into that we use oxygen and nitrogen to refine that liquid steel. We achieve the exact chemical composition of the steel that we require for our finished product. Once we are sure that it's all okay, then the liquid steel is brought here and it's poured through this structure where it is sprayed by cold water, which now makes it solidify. And it comes out as a solid piece of metal, still very hot, but comes out as a solid metal now. When they start coming out from there, there's an automatic pushing table where it's going to be pushed onto the cooling table. That is basically a cooling bed, and it will sit there for about an hour. Then from there it is lifted by this crane here, and then transferred to down here to cool down even more till it's ready to be handled. And then from here it'll be picked by crane, put onto a truck and taken to our next process where it will cool down to room temperature completely. We want to make sure that when the client is using the product and is bending it or straightening it, it's not going to break or have any adverse effect. So we run that test as well routinely, and if any time during the production process itself we realize that we are not achieving what we are supposed to be, then the production process is altered, stopped, whatever corrections need to be done are done. The product doesn't leave the factory.
Okay.